My story. Well, I'm Jessica and use she, her pronouns, and I was initiated into the world of grief pretty young and pretty fast. My mother was diagnosed with Crohn's disease throughout my childhood, and she lived and managed it well. And when I was about 12 years old, that started to change and turn. And a few years later, at about the age of 14, the big C word came out. And we were starting to talk about cancer and what that looked like for her. And she went through chemotherapy and radiation. And even amongst all of that, still able to find small times to, have a family vacation. But in the midst of all of that, my grandfather, her father, had suffered a massive stroke leaving a community event and had died a few weeks later after we had to make a really difficult decision to take him off life support. So our family was reeling with one loss, knowing that there was another loss potentially coming down the line very soon. And about 12 months later, my mother finally died of cancer after a incredibly, difficult and very different experience every day. Moments of joy, moments of toughness, moments of just pretending that things were fine and that she didn't have cancer sometimes, which was more than allowed. And as our family started to grieve her death, just about a month and a half later, my godmother, my aunt on my father's side of the family, who we're all really close with, she had died really suddenly in her sleep. Both of them were under the age of 55. And that brought our whole family needed to confront something. It is the elephant in the room. These two people aren't at the table. And how do we make sense of it? How do we grieve them? How do we honor them? And for a lot of different parts, I knew there were people in my family who had been through loss, but I felt so alone. And I was really grateful for the opportunity to get together with a peer support group of other teenagers who had parents die, had siblings die, to know I'm not the only person at high school with this imaginary flashing light over my head saying, she has a dead mom, because it felt like that all the time, especially when my grief was new. But that opportunity to connect with teenagers my age and talk about stuff nobody else wanted to or understood was really important to me and really helped me move through my grief and move through my life to the point where I am now, where I walk with other people as a social worker and therapist through their grief. So that's just a snippet of my story.